My name is Troy Becker, known as Fishslim on Ohio Game Fish. And most people know me for something that I love, and that's being an avid Saugeye fisherman. And I want to welcome everybody to the 2018 Ohio Fish Expo. I hope you're having a good time today. We're going to be talking nighttime Saugeye tactics. These are the things we're going to hit. When is the right time for night fishing? What do I use? When? Why? Are you using jerk baits in your arsenal? We're going to spend a little bit more time on jerk baits because that's a nighttime must. What is meant by tuning your jerk bait? And what is dead sticking? And why do you need to do that? And last, we're going to talk about summer nights. A lot of guys, when it gets to the heat of the summer, forget about saugeyes from the shorelines or even from the boats because they're a little tougher. They go out during the day and they troll for them. We're going to talk about how summer nights, it sizzles. It's a great time to fish for them. So when's the right time for fishing for saugeyes at night? Whenever there is open water. Let me tell you, saugeyes don't quit eating. I think many here have learned that. How many are avid saugeye fishermen that we have in the crowd with us today? Great. Fantastic. So there's some guys here like Sean M. and some of the other guys that are local veterans that have been around fishing like me for well over 20 years for the saugeyes. We already understand the importance of when it's time to fish at night. Because now especially, what's happening? We're warming up, right? Ice is coming off, and what's that mean? If you want to catch a trophy, this is now the best time you have from now to we'll say the first part of April, before some of them might have spawned by then, but before the spawn. What I've found, and many of us have found, is that the males are active all the time, but those females can be tougher to catch. A lot of that is because they love eating at night. They get on the move. Now we're going to talk about springtime after the spawn and the fall time. When's it right to fish at night for them? Same thing. Just like daytime, they get on a steady feed, they're hungry. Nighttime, they come back out, they keep on eating. Then last will be about the summer, as I mentioned. If you're not fishing in the summertime at night, taking advantage of some of those hot 80-degree nights, out on your boat on Allen Creek, or casting the shorelines from Allen Creek or the Scioto River, or it doesn't matter where, places that you saugeye fish, you're missing out. Some of my best fishing is like 11 o'clock to 2 in the morning on the hottest, muggy summer night you can have. We'll talk about the baits to use during that time. So nighttime saugeye tactics. When is it the right time for night fishing? We've already talked about. I went the wrong way, I think. Check. Yep. What do I use, when, and why? These are the baits we're going to talk about. We'll stop at the first one, jerk baits, because we're going to talk later. We're going right to swim baits. I'm going to use one of these big ones in my hand so everybody can see. Everybody does know I am a avid lover of Big Joshy swim baits, and I am sponsored for these seminars by them, but it doesn't have to be a Big Joshy swim bait to use. But I'll tell you, if you want one that's been tested thoroughly, not by me, but by many individuals, it's a great catching bait. Not only for saugeyes, but at night for smallmouth, catfish, you name it. They hit it. Swim baits in your arsenal at night is very important. When? Starting with the water as it starts to warm up just a little bit. All it takes is getting it up about 2 or 3 degrees into the mid-30s. Then the swim bait action can start. It might be a more slow, steady popping of the bait instead of a faster action. And we'll go over some more of this on that. The other bait that we're going to talk about, we're talking about is trap baits. If I can get one of these other ones out, I will. If not, well, this is a red-eye quarter-ounce striped king. I love them. Love them for the way they fall when you jerk them up and snap them. Another one that we love using in some of the shallower lakes, such as Indian, Buckeye, places like that, even in the rivers, is the rip and wrap, the smaller version. See a few grins out there, because yeah, they understand it's a great bait for sawguys. Crankbaits, as the water warms up into the 50s, and so at night, anywhere from I love using square bills in the rivers and on shallow flats. And I'll go to the Berkeley flicker shads and different ones like bombers, different things like that to use where I fish them on the flats as I'm walking on the shoreline at night. If you're in a boat, crankbaits in the summertime or even in the spring, let's start there, as it warms up on these flats out of your boat, is a great way for you to locate fish if you're out at night on your boat looking for them. Crankbait is a great seeker bait, as I call it. Find where they're at, get active, catch some of them, and then maybe you're going to turn to the swim bait or to jerk bait to try to catch some of the other ones. Another thing that's going to be used, and I don't have it up here with me right now, is road runners. A lot of people, and I know if you've listened to me talk about during the days of the summer or in the spring, that road runners with a swim bait or a twister tail and a small chunk of night crawler is fantastic for catching. Well, a lot of times what happens is when it gets dark, people will forget about them. They go away from it. Alum Creek, you can go on these points at night, give it a few hours after dark to let it settle back in. And if the bite's not working with a faster working bait, take those whistler jigs or those road runners in the swim and that little chunk of crawler and start slow dragging and hopping those along the tops of those flats. We've had fantastic nights doing it that way. So that's something to keep about as well. And it's great also in the river. All right, I mentioned jerk baits. I'm going to take some time with this because this is a major component that I love for night fishing. What are some of the jerk baits that are out there? We have Smithwicks, they have the Rogues, they have the Pro Series, they have Elite 8, they have P10. How many of you use a P10 Smithwick in 3 to 5 foot water? Hey, I see some hands. You think, whoa, man, that's a big build bait. There's no way you're going to take something like that and work it in skinny water or work it in a river. But you can. We'll talk about how to do that with tuning this bait so that you can do that. Others we have are our Rapala Husky jerks. Then there's the X-Wraps, or the slashing style baits. Then you have the Cordell Red Fins. If any of you guys have been using any of those, they're great river baits at night. It runs a little shallower, has a great wobble action. Bomber long A's, and some bandits. All these are different types of jerk baits. Why did I bring this up? Because don't get stuck in a rut. Don't become, like me, and if you're not careful, a Smithwick Rogue fan and think it's the only thing that will work. A lot of times, this is money. There's sometimes when you're not getting bit, say you're with Indian Lake or you're one of these places and the guy beside you at night, he's throwing a Husky jerk. He's catching fish and you're not. Have you ever changed to put a Husky jerk on? Try to mimic what he's doing? Because a lot of times it's the subtle difference in the way all these baits work that means catching those fish at night. Where a pallet has more of a subtle role. The rattle chamber, a lot quieter. This is a bigger wobble. This on the P10s is a one clacking. If you're ever at night, pull one of these through the water and it's dead quiet, give it a jerk, you can hear it 20 feet out going knock, knock, knock. Different kind of sound. So, we're going to, I got ahead of myself, that's one of my things. I am a key component of movement and sound. How many of you think that movement and sound is important in your fishing? Great. People ask me all the time, well, if the water's muddy, why are you fishing? I'm like, because the fish, they're still swimming, right? They're still eating, right? Sometimes what you got to do is you got to take the style bait that's going to make more movement in the water. It's going to make more sound in the water in muddy conditions to get that bite. Crystal clear lake, crystal clear water, front's been through, fish are acting finicky. A lot of times these size baits don't work as well. But if you put a pro rogue on, or you put a junior rogue, a 2-hook smaller version, or you go to the Rapala or one of these other baits, sometimes that subtle change in the way that bait is working will make the difference in catching fish. The slash bait, it's got a little junior guy here, but that's the same thing. There's times when an X-Wrap will destroy other jerk baits out there. It's got a totally different movement. It's also got a feather on it. It sits there and breathes a little bit in the water. Okay? So that's another reason to keep these type baits in your arsenal. Now we're going to talk about a question that I constantly get. I'm emailed about, messaged about, I talked about it before. What does tuning mean? Definition of tuning a jerkbait. When I get a new jerkbait out of its package, like I have this one sitting here, first thing I do is to take it out, and on the front is an O-ring, is your split ring, right? I take that off. So what I'm talking about tuning a bait is already been what? I've already changed the bait. Most people think when you're talking tuning a crankbait or a jerkbait, it's to make sure it runs true through the water. And you want to do that. You want to make sure it's true. But the tuning we're talking about is how many of you have bought a suspending jerkbait and it doesn't suspend when you buy it? Hopefully it'll at least float. Because you got a lot better chance of making it work the way you want it to work. If it's sinking, you're going to do a lot more work. You might be taking treble hooks off and putting a smaller, thinner treble hook on so that you can get this bait to rise. Why is that important? We'll go to the big boy here to help us a little bit so it's easier to see. Couldn't find a 3-hook version. I always like when tuning a bait is mentioned. I take that split ring off the top. Notice it's gone. Well, I'm getting blind, and I don't like tying lines at night. But the one thing I found is the reason I take that split ring off is I keep in my pocket, this isn't breath mints, this is different size snap clips. I found that a #1 duo clip, snap clip, is about the exact same way to that split ring you took off. So now when you snap onto this nose again, what have you done? You really haven't changed anything with what the balance was when they tuned it at the factory, so-called. Okay, that's the first thing I do. Now, when I get to a lake, we're going to talk cold water because that's where we're at. Take this to from 34 degrees now up into 45, 50 degrees and use this technique and you'll catch fish. First thing I do when I go to a lake or a stream and I'm going to jerkbait fish is I'll take a pole or I'll take a few of these. If I got a little spot in the eddy, I can lay some baits in the water that I want to use. I lay them in the water. And then I'll take my other pole with a swim bait or whatever on it and I'll cast for 5 minutes. What do you think I'm doing? That water right now is 34, 36 degrees and you just put a 50-degree lure or a 70-degree lure in your truck cooking. How are you going to be able to tune it properly suspending by not getting it acclimated to the water temperatures you're fishing? That is key. That is very important. So how are you going to go about doing that? Well, we're going to take one that floats when you put it in the water. You've now acclimated it to the water temperature. First thing you do is pull it down into the water in front of you. And watch, see how fast it's moving. After you've done this a while, you'll start to get an idea of how much lead or lead wire you're going to need to get this to suspend, to literally sit where you pull it and not go up or not go down. It's key. Okay, now I know what it's there. This is going to be our lead strip. I love using, as we've mentioned, Storm has lead strips that you can buy. If you don't want to use those, there are lead wire, solder, different things like that you can use. I kind of got an example. I just put a twisty on here and show you that you can do it that way as well. Okay, now I know this bait is floating up. I'm going to wrap on the middle shank. I like to always start on the middle hook of a 3-hook. And I'm going to start wrapping wrapping that bait or that lead onto that bait. Now, I'm not going to crimp it or push it hard. I'm going to leave it hanging with a tag. Now I'm going to put it back in the water. I'm going to give it a pull. And this is where you start keeping clippers in your pocket all the time. Now you're going to take your fingernail clippers, and what you're going to do is start on the corner of that, and you're going to just start nipping a little piece at a time off of that. And then you're going to put it back in the water, and you're going to pull it down. And the goal is to finally nip enough of that lead off of there to when you pull it, now you've got a bait sitting right. Okay? So now you have truly tuned a jerk bait for fishing in cold water and even in warm water. It doesn't matter. Depends on how you want the bait to work. So, do you need to do this all the time? No. But in the springs and in the fall and everything I'm talking about in cold water, just reverse it from fall to spring. That's what we're talking about. That's the key time when you really need to do this. And that's what we'll talk about on the next slide about dead stick. But if it's 50 and 45, 50 degree water, and say you're at Mountainwood, Indian Lake, everybody knows that spot, and you're casting lure, your swim baits out there, it's totally different than a deep water lake. Totally different type fishing. Guys will pull this bait down, and they'll let it sit there maybe 2 or 3 seconds, and they're giving it another twitch, 2 or 3 seconds, and they're twitching, right? They're moving it pretty quick, actually. So because of that, they're keeping the bait down because of more movement. So it doesn't really matter if it's rising a little bit or falling because you're keeping it in that zone. There's other times, and I'll tell you about where you tune a bait, you get it suspending good, and you're not catching a fish, but the guys over there beside you are working their bait faster. Then you get to asking, no, wait a minute, hey, could you throw that in the water for a minute? Let me see what your bait's doing. Guarantee you what you're going to find is that their bait is sinking like a rock. They don't really even know that, but they're catching fish and they're happy. So guess what? Those ones I told you that are sinkers, a lot of times that you get out of the bag or the box, if you don't want to change trebles, I put an S on them. I mark them in a box. I will walk right back over there and I'll get my sinking jerk bait out, cast her out, pull it down, and start working it. Now why is that important? The Saugeys don't always want to come up and rise to a bait above them. A lot of times they want it right in their nose. So that's key. Have some that sink, have some that truly suspend. Maybe you tune up a few of them so they slowly rise. I always take a real slow riser. Nothing wrong with that. But on the next question is, what is dead stick? Now this is where a lot of people, and I'm ADD, and this is very difficult for me to do. We're talking cold water conditions again. And this is key if you want to catch big fish in colder water at night. Dead sticking is, now that you've got this bait truly tuned, is casting it out, pulling it to the acquired depth or where you feel you need to pull it to in the water column, and let it sit there. How long? My definition for how long is, if the water is ice cold to 40, I have been known to let this thing sit on to a minute with only tending the line just a little bit to where I know I'm in contact with the bait. And even though we call it dead sticking, you know what's really happening out there? It's a little wave action. There's a little wind. So the bait's doing little subtle moves. This is where those large girl females love to sit under these baits and watch them. You ever watch a shad in the water that's dying? A lot of times, what is it? It's just laying there. It's doing nothing. And the next sudden, after 30 seconds or so, what's it do? It's twitch, twitch. That's what you do next. You might go 15 seconds, 30 seconds. Now just give it a subtle pull to make that bait roll a little bit. Let it sit for another 15 to 20 to 30, however long it's been working. Do that again. I've been known to look at the stars, pull out my phone to check if I've had any texts or somebody sending me pictures of the ones they got. While you're doing that, that pole's right there and you're ready, you get that knock. You'll get that pull of the line. So always be ready. And the other thing is, don't stop dead sticking or work that thing all the way back to you on the shore. This is the rock shore right here in front of us, right? guys, they see it all the time. They do this great, and they get to about 10 feet of the shore, and they reel it in real fast, and they cast her way out again. Half the time, these Saugeys will either follow the bait out of the deeper water that you're over or on that flat, and they just are curious. But once it gets close to shore, and they think it's going to leave, be ready, because that's when they'll hit a lot. Right at your feet. Some of my biggest Saugeys, and I'm talking 9 to 10 pound Saugeys, have hit with maybe 10 feet of line out. And I guarantee you, most of them weren't sitting right there looking at me. They followed that bait. So have the patience to let the bait work for you once you've tuned it and done it properly. So again, how long do you do it? Like cold water temperatures let you know the longer. Medium water temperatures, especially the shallower lakes, they warm up quicker, so you don't have to do this dead sticking as long. You know, in the 40 to 50 range, keep the bait moving a little faster. 50 and up, you might literally twitch, reel up the slack, twitch, reel up the slack, and that'd be the way the bite works. These are key things, not only from shoreline, but I have guys always asking, man, do you catch them casting these at night on boats? You can. In the spring, in the fall, cold water, you can still go out on the flats, find yourself a nice flat 6 to 8 foot water on it, drop it into deep water, park your boat out there, don't move all around, start fan casting and dead sticking these baits. Alright? Took a little longer on this just because if you're not jerkbait fishing, you're missing out on a lot of fish. And I am an avid jig fisher. 80% of the time otherwise, if I'm not doing this, I'm jigging. But I know at certain times of the year, like now till through March, the importance of how these things are key. I see a few grins out there because other guys know it as well. Now we'll go back. I'm going to go back to these other baits for a minute. We'll just talk about them a little more through the summer and through the from the lake's point of view. As the water's warmed up, a lot of people ask about how to use these. Well, again, if you're you're out at night in the spring, flats, different places like that, you can cast your jigs, your swim baits, trap baits, crank baits. Still do it like you do during the day. Nothing's really changed. These fish run shallow during the day in the springtime, and into June, I say up to June, you're going to find them. Why are they running shallow in the lakes? Because there's shore minnows all over those shores. They eat shad all year long, but when they got a new delicacy that comes out in the spring, it's those shore minnows, they love them and they eat them. So if you want to put a pair of waders on, wade the shoreline. If you're in a boat, work your same areas. Find flats, find road beds, find edges, work the tops. It'll work for you. Same with trap baits. I'm going to tell you right now, let's see what I did with that one. In cold water, about when the water's in the 40s, I still love doing my jerk baits, but have one of these on a bowl. Or if you go 10, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, you haven't caught anything on a jerk bait, take about 5 minutes to take and put one of these trap baits on. Cast it out as far as you can, let it hit bottom, and start hopping it back to you, just like you would a blade bait in the cold water. And that water's in the 40s, I don't know what it is, but from 40 to about 48 in the spring and in the late fall, there's about a week to a week and a half where this is money. There's times when I forget about the jerkbait because this gets so good. I had one 2 Novembers ago at Allen Creek fishing a 12-foot ledge coming up. Couldn't get anything on a jerkbait, couldn't get anything on a swim bait. I took one of these red eyes, sunk it, and started hopping and working it up. And about halfway up that edge, these things are gone. They're way down their throat. They inhale them. Again, I think it's that sound. It's that vibration, and it's that sudden movement of something falling in front of them that triggers them. So sometimes you have to trigger the fish. Don't get stuck in a rut with one thing. And that's key then. And in the summertime, which we're going to talk about, these things are awesome as well. But you're going to work them a totally different way. Last thing in cooler water can be crankbaits. Guys do your trolling, a lot of them. In fact, guys ask me, why doesn't trolling planer boards like we do at Lake Erie seem to work in these smaller lakes at night? Matt Hogan, who's with Smithwick, one of the guys, he says, we've tried, Alan, we can't figure it out. We'll catch fish up to dark and then it's done. You know, I told him, I said, Matt, we got talking, he got thinking, he goes, how far out is your farthest planer board to the side? Maybe 20 feet. All right, how far away are you from the shore? Maybe another 20 feet. There's your problem. They can't troll them shallow enough. Or if you can, try it. That's the problem with a lot of the guys that are out there trolling at night for Saugeys. They're still staying over that 8 to 10 to 12 to 15 foot water. Saugeys love, especially when the water starts warming up some, they're feeding, they're up in that, you know me, I preach 6, 8 foot and shallower, till I've caught them as skinny as their backs out of the water. And I'm not kidding you, they'll blow up when they hit it. Indian Lake at night with a swim bait, no, take that back, just a twister tail, in a foot of water, my 32-inch, 12-pound, 2-ounce Saugeye, in a foot of water. It was a mud boil. I thought it was a carp. It turned out to be my biggest Saugeye. But if you're in a boat and you're not getting close enough with your trolling, that could be a reason. Think shallow. That's why I love shoreline fishing, guys. That's why I do so much night fishing from shore. I have a boat. Guy goes, we never see you in your boat. I go, well, that's true because I usually stop a lot and fish on the way home because my route takes me everywhere. Or somebody else got a boat, I jump on it. But no, truly, I get done with my route and I'm already by a lake I want to fish. I'm not driving the extra hour to get home to get my boat to go out when I'm already on a hot spot. So that's another thing to think about. Keep your equipment with you and always be ready. Now, let's talk about summer. I don't know where we're at time-wise, where we're sitting. Anybody know?
A half hour. 3:30.
Okay, great. I want to take some questions. We're going to talk this a bit. I really love taking some time just to let you ask questions about it. I've done a lot of this, and I know I'm missing a lot of things you might think about or wonder about, so we'll ask questions. But again, if you're not out in the summertime at night, in the heat of the night, you're missing out. You don't have to be on the shores this time. I can tell you that right now. Go on Allen Creek, and I've talked to some guys, and I mean this to some of you guys out there. You want to have some fun, dog days of the summer, put a little night tournament together, 4 or 5 tournaments for the summer. They don't start till 10 o'clock at night, we're fish till 2, 4-hour tournaments. I'm telling you what, it's not only Saugeys, some of the biggest smallmouth that you're going to catch out of Allen Creek are going to hit the same baits you're using for those Saugeys. So where are you going to fish? If you're in the boat, it's the same principle that we have through spring or fall, the points. Allen Creek is loaded with points, right? Allen Creek has a lot of flats. So what we like to do is we'll pinpoint 2 or 3 of our popular points that we catch Saugeys on during the day, and they'll be our starting points. We'll think of a flat that seems to be holding a lot of fish. That'll be another spot. And then Allen Creek is also known to have some roadbeds. They also have some humps. Over by Crisco Bay, as I call it, so many Saugeys come out of that bay. Those are the spots from a boat to get out there at night. And what you do is if you got a partner with you, one of your guys puts a swim bait on. We use a lot of the 325 style swim baits. I hope I got my popular color in here. I don't with me, but it's a Slim's bait I love using. I love using it at night because it works great. This one does as well. Anything green works great in Allen Creek. I don't care whether it's dark or daylight. Green works. One guy, go up, let's say we're on one of these points. You start out casting with this with about an 1/8 ounce head, because we're now again fishing 4 to 6 foot of water, 8 foot of water. Start steady reeling at first. See if there's active fish there. The other guy have him put trap bait on or crankbait. Have him start cranking and casting. Now, you're thinking with a crankbait or with a trap bait, I'm not talking now about popping it. You can do that. And at times that ends up being the technique because you might learn that from your swim baits as well. Dragging it. Majority of the time when you're out there on a summer night, you want to cover a lot of water, we'll forget the swim baits and everything else. Just put on a blue chrome, a fire tiger, there's like a red craw. Those three colors, well, the sexy shad one too, so there's four. You've seen that little four group I had. Those baits at night on Allen Creek are killer. And what's great about it is you don't have to be a superstar to catch these fish with these. Get your trolling motor, start moving up and down. Let's say it's one of the road beds on Allen Creek. You basically start on that road bed and you just start slow, trolling motor very slow and bump it along. Cast these things well ahead of the boat or way behind it, off the sides. Typically they're going to be up on the top. Hit the water, count to maybe 2, and I'm talking burn this thing. I'm talking real. I'm talking if it's quiet at night, then 20 yards away, you're going to hear this thing coming through the water. That's how fast you're moving this bait. Guess what? You can start getting used to hearing that rattle rhythm. It sounds great. But you know what sounds even better? When you don't hear that rattle no more. Because you've now just had a saugeye or a big smallmouth, saugeye, attack that bait. We've had nights out in the summer in August when the water's 85, 90 degrees, back a few years, where we'll catch anywhere from 15 to 20 fish on one spot. And then we'll have smallmouth thrown in with that. So don't forget about this. It's a great seek bait. It works great on the top of ledges. On the drops, if the fish then aren't on the top, try pouring off the sides, the edges. Start that hopping motion. See if you can find it. But the key things, the 2 baits I typically use at night if I'm in a boat, is just trap baits. And there's more different ones out there you can use. The Rip and Wraps work great too. I have just found that this 1/4 ounce size striped king, red eye, catches a lot of fish. Indian Lake, places like that, I'll go to the 3/16, little smaller redfish. Now in a river, would you think to use this in a river? At night? Say one of the spillways? On a hot night? Seeking bait again. You want to try to search out and eliminate some water? Start just fan casting this all over the place. If you know you're in 6 foot of water, count to 3. Keep the rod tip up, steady reel. As you're reeling, every now and then just stop. Give that thing a little pause. And start burning it again. Those saugeyes will annihilate this thing. And what else do we know about rivers? The wipers now will destroy them. The catfish will eat them. Catch flatheads and channels on these things. The river's just crazy. It's just a fun time at night. It sizzles at night. I really mean that. The hotter the water, the better the bite can get. But what I really love doing, if I'm not doing that, see if I can get one of these out. Just take these 2. These are floaters. This is just a Rapala, floating Rapala. This is one of those scatter wraps. Got the bigger bill on it, so it gives it a little more wobble. What I found, you can go to these favorite spots in the river, your holes, or the spillways, and the water's lower and calm down in the summer. What happens? We get lower water conditions. A lot of people forget about the spillways then, and their holes downstream. Those fish are there if there's bait there. In the summertime, you know what? Sometimes there's not a lot of bait there, so they're hungry. You take one of these, cast it out. The key to this now is to let it hit the water, reel up to it, and get it started, and give it a pull. So basically what you're doing is you're pulling this bait down and stop. Let it flutter to the surface. Get into a rhythm of where you start to just see this tick the surface of the water. Make your next pull. Pull it down, let it stop and float. You will be surprised when the first one hits, because it's on that flutter, and it's not just a love tap. These are massive hits. They explode on. And I will warn you, if you're on the Scioto River and the water temperature's from 70 to 73, somewhere in that range, if you're in it, especially any one of the roller dams or spillways, guess what's spawning then? channel cats. And it's so hard to catch a saugeye because you can't get to them because this is one after the other on these baits. I had 2 guys below a dam tight lining for channel cats and flatheads. And I'm just throwing a floating Rapala on the surface, just minding my own business, trying to catch saugeyes and smallies. I caught in 9 casts 5 channel cats that were 27 to 33 inches long. These guys walk over to me like, well, wait a minute, what are you doing? I'm like, well, fishing for saugeyes and wipers. So we're fishing for cats, and we've got 112, 14-inch channel. And I said, well, guys, you know, that works, but not always. This is swim baits. I showed them the swim baits, and I showed them these, and I gave them a couple of swim baits. I said, one of you guys, one guy wouldn't do it. I'm a catfishing guy, I ain't casting that stuff. The other guy was okay. He had 30-pound line, and I gave him a 1/4 ounce jig and a swim, and he throws it out on his 3rd cast, hits the water, counts 2, starts reeling, and brings in a 27-inch channel cat. So now he's giving it to his buddy. So everything in the rivers at night will eat these baits, but this is a great way to catch saugeyes at night. Another time is even, don't forget about this in the fall, or as it's getting dark, or before the spring, when the spawn is done. Right after the spawn, they go in a big feed. A lot of us still jig fish for them, or do suspending jerk bait still. These can be money. They will come up and hit these and attack it even during the day. But on the river still, if you're there, I still love, in the summertime, jerk bait. A lot of guy goes, well, you're talking floaters. I'm talking suspenders, and I'm talking a tune bait that's dead sticked where I pull it in the water, but now the water's 85 degrees. You can make that bait still do that. I've honestly been known sometimes where I can't get them to stay down. I've even nicked the hook off just to help get that weight so I can get them to stay there. Why? One of the things when they're not real aggressive is to take the suspending jerk bait, throw it upstream a ways in the hole you're at, give it a pull so it's maybe only a foot down. Water clarity's decent in the river at this time. Now, just like we talked about dead sticking in cold water, you're basically going to do the same thing in warm water. All you're going to do is tend your line. You're going to let this bait naturally do what? Flow with the current, right over top of fish. Keep your line up with it, and every now and then give it that little roll. A lot of times you don't even have to do that. I had a young guy who was training, showing him some stuff one night, and we were using a white, pure bone weight, suspending Rick Clunt. And I'm showing him stuff, and I throw it out, and I set it, pulled it, and I put my arm, pull under my arm, and I got clear play, and I'm showing him what I did and how I did it. That thing's just floating along, and a line just about took the pull out of it. I wasn't doing anything to that bait. What did I do? I let the conditions, the currents, naturally take a bait downstream so they could eat it. There's nights when you can be way too aggressive, guys. It doesn't matter if it's super hot or super cold. You got to be willing to adapt. You have to be willing to fluctuate. And it will work. You know, one way he asked me, he goes, why steelhead fish? I go, well, when you steelhead fish, you got a floating fly or a floating minnow, and when you do it, it's the same principle with this, but it's underwater. You have a float, and what do? You're going to let that flow down with the current in front of you, but it's called tending the line. You're told to snap your line, to keep the line in front of the bobber, because if the bobber leans, creating drag, and it's not natural to those steelhead. Same thing with this. Tend your line, don't let it get a big bow in it to where it actually has got more current now pushing it faster than the original current. Keep your rod tip up. Keep your contact with the bait to the point where you know you're close to it and you're allowing that flow. So that's a key thing that a lot of people don't think about. It really is. We overthink a lot of things too. Don't overthink. A lot of times just take a deep breath, relax. Go back to a jig. Go back to something that you are good at and stick with that for a while. But I tell you what, if you'll take one of these baits we've talked about and add just that one for a season and work on it, you now will have 2 baits that are now key components to you. Take the third bait, add it on. Sometimes you hurt yourselves by trying to grab too many of these at once. Try to learn. And if you're starting out at fishing, and not just Saugeys, I preach this, learn how to jig fish. There's not a fish in the water that won't hit a jig. And once you learn how to control a jig, there's not a place that you can't fish it. And there's not another bait now that you can't not use. How can I and some of these guys go to these rocky rivers and dams and throw a 1/4 ounce jig with a swim bait on it and work that thing and tick rocks and not get stuck? I can honestly, I've done this so long that I get upset if I lose 2 jigs in a night. Because why? I've taught myself the importance of tending your line and keeping in control of the bait. That's key. What do I see in a lot of you guys? You're going to recognize, know what I'm talking about. Novice guys or ones that are learning will cast it out with a big rainbow of line. It hits the water in front of them in the river or the current, and what happens? The minute they crank up all their line, I got a fish. No, it's not a fish. They've snagged that bait. Why? Because they didn't care about that bait, I guess. They got all kinds of money. No. Learn to do this. When your bait hits the water, and I don't even trust my bail, the reel, my lure hits the water, I hand flip this, and I get that line tight right away, and then you can actually literally watch your line fall. And you'll see, and you'll learn, and you'll feel, and know when you hit bottom immediately, you don't hesitate. You start bringing the bait. Then if you're just reeling it, by keeping that rod tip up, you can tick that jig, even though it's heavy, right along the top of those rocks where they're laying in. And they come right up and they eat it. If you're not hiking contact in the night or even during the day and knocking your baits on some of that on the bottom, you're losing out on a ton of fish. Because that noise, that movement creates reactions in the end. All right? Those are some of the key things I do for night fishing that I hope help give you some ideas. But at this time, like I said, I just love to take a little time and answer some questions. This was Alum Creek on a 48-degree water temperature night. I put 6 of those on the shore with that same trap bait in probably an hour on one spot. And then when they quit biting that way, we caught some more of them with our jerk baits as they come farther up on the and closer and shallow. Questions? Any questions? Oh, come on, guys. I know there's going to be something. Question is, do I always use a clip or do I tie on direct? Me personally, 99% of the time I'm using one of those clips. My reasons are, it's a couple reasons, because I hate tying. But I also found, and we've done it with testing our swim baits, that by tying direct a lot of times, you hinder the movement of the bait. Okay? By just using that clip, and that's why a lot of the guys put that split ring, the companies put that split ring on there because they want the freedom of the bait. Okay? So when you tie it direct, a lot of times you're taking a lot of the movement out of the bait, doing it that way. And we've found that especially with swim baits, but I don't care if it's a jig with a twister tail. No. But now there's times if you're fishing vertically or something like that, then I take the clip off. Then I tie direct if it's a jig or something like that. If it's a spoon or something, I'll keep the clip on. We all know blade baits, you got to. But if you want the bait to sit in the water like this, now you can't have a clip because it's going to do this, right? So now by tying direct, you can help it do that. Next thing I do, and I check this on the cast, especially every 4 or 5 casts, I'll push the knot over towards the inside of the eyelet. So that's actually looking like it's facing towards that hook. What have I done? I've made that little extra bow to where that bait will now. And if you ice fish, guys, and you're not catching a guy a lot of times besides you is, a lot of times it's because your bait's are doing this. And those crappies and those fish, those Saugeys, they want it sit like this. They don't want it. So there's a right time too, but I have found that a clip works basically all the time. I don't use swivels though. It's just a snap clip. Question? Yep. Question again is about when you're dead sticky. You start long and short. Typically, if I'm just getting to a lake and I'm learning it and we haven't been there and a lot of guys haven't fished it, we communicate a lot, we'll know how the bite's going. Even on the cold conditions, a lot of times I'll start with maybe a 5-10 second pause and work it in that way just to see if they're active. Because it can still be 34 degree water, 35 degree water, and they'll be active. But if they're not, then I start extending that time frame more and more in between pulls to see what they want. You gotta try to do that. Yeah. And as the water warms up, like I say, I've got sometimes, and that water's in the 50s, it's twitch. I call it the Indian Lake twitch. It's twitch real. I mean, you're moving it that quick all the time. But that, well, a lot of times, will not get you a fish in a deep water lake on the same water temps. What's cool about the fact that we live in Ohio, I'll get you here, that we have shallow lakes and deep lakes, right? So always think about that in your arsenal as well. When the water starts warming up, where's the first place you want to go? The rivers and the shallow lakes. Once they start slowing down, they literally start spawning. You don't see me at Allen Creek a lot of times till a little later in March, into April, because I'm having so much fun on the shallows and the rivers. They phase out a little bit, go into their next phase. The deeper lakes are now starting their spawn. So it's great practice. I love shallow lakes for practicing for the deep water lakes later. But you have to keep those techniques. You had a question?
Yeah, what pound test do you like, and what do you think about the fluorocarbon or braid?
Okay, what pound test do I like? And fluorocarbon. We'll just go through this real quick. This is a medium light rod with extra fast action. I have another one, I take it back, this is my medium with fast action. I have another one that's medium light with extra fast action. I use braid, and I probably use it 90% of the time, all year. I love Suffix Performance braid. It's hard to find. There's a lot of good braids out there, but I found that 10-pound braid will pretty much do the job always for you in the conditions we're fishing. I've caught 30-pound, 47-inch muskies at Allen Creek fishing jerk baits with this rod and this line. And if you hook that muskie right with it, that's the key part. Then you fight it right. But what we're fishing for, that seems great. 90, let's put it this way too. Now, if I'm fishing Allen Creek and the water's crystal clear, especially the colder water when we're finessing more with that dead stick, I will take a 3-foot leader or 2.5-foot leader of fluorocarbon or something like P-line, whatever, in 10-pound or 12-pound, and put that and do a double uni knot with my braid, and then tie bait to that. And that'll help you sometimes because they're not, but a lot of guys know me, I'm lazy, and if I break that off one time at night, even at Allen Creek, I'm putting my clip bag on with braid, and I don't seem to have too much problem. So, but it does help. But in a lot of our lakes and rivers, there's no reason to. Why? Because they're murky. They got a dinge to them. They got a little bit of color. Especially Indian Lake, ones like that. I never use a leader. Never. Don't need it. And the other thing about Saugeyes, they can be picky when they want to be picky. But once they're on their feet and want to eat, we all know this, they eat. They don't care. And I tell you, I'm going to tell you all I can tell them. If you're catching Saugeye and you catch your first one, it's great. I don't care how proud you are of it. Lay it back here behind you in the grass or wherever you are and immediately cast back out. These fish will school up, or this is what they do. There might only be a few there. They pattern their feeds and they eat. And when they eat, they're so efficient. They're done. And then you might got that great fish, but you might have put 2 or 3 more on the shore. But you're taking pictures instead. And I'm over here going, take the picture, guy. Take that picture. And we're catching fish. So that's important. Always think about that. I saw a question over this way. All right. I love, and I'll talk, the question was the moon, phases of the moon. And I'll be honest with you, I'm not a full moon, right at full moon kind of guy. A lot of guys think the full moon is just awesome. You know what I like? I like the 3 or 4 days before the full moon, and I like the 3 or 4 days after the moon. And I find that you'll tend to find much more activity in eaters, especially on that spawn moon. When that gets to that point, a lot of times they're busy thinking spawn with that moon and the day, the length of the days they got their own mind. But those days leading up to it, they're active, and those days after. Time-wise, I think I'm about done. But if you have some more questions, I'll be more than willing to stay up here and answer them, or over here off to the side. I hope I've helped giving you some ideas that can help you at night. If you're not night fishing, do it. If you are night fishing, do it. And do it at different times that you are if they aren't working. All through the night works. Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thanks, George.